Hi friend, welcome back to the channel where we focus less on trying and more on being the best version of ourselves. If you're new, welcome, lovely to have you here. I'm Aisha. On this channel we talk about manifestation, reality creation, deciding to have the things you want, things of that nature. If you would like one-on-one help with that, everything you need to know is in the description box below, along with some other fun things that might come to the description box soon. Definitely will. I'm working on it. So I would like to touch on some comments and questions that I've been seeing recently about techniques and whether or not using techniques means that you are in a state of lack or that you are still in the state of not having your desire. I can understand why this is true because even I myself have said, if you're in the state where you know that it's done, what is there left to do? Would you be affirming incessantly? Would you feel like there's something you're chasing after? Would you feel this intense longing or this burning desire for something that's already yours? Probably not. If you are already identified and embodied in the version of yourself that you want to be, the version of yourself that has what you want, you probably wouldn't be trying to figure out how to get what you want because you already have it, right? But let's get real, okay? A lot of people are new to manifestation. Not all manifestations are the same. Not everybody's journey is the same. And sometimes the most beneficial path for you, or the path of least resistance, is going to be to use a technique. I want to do a little bit of a better job of including everybody from brand new to manifestation to adept, knows manifestation like the back of their hand, so that everybody can gain value or new insight or be sparked to think about something from a little bit of a different perspective, no matter what we're speaking about here. So when I speak about techniques, I am talking about things that you use to help you get your manifestation. Whether you are affirming, doesn't matter what kind of affirming you're doing, whether you're doing robotic affirming, whether you're doing inner conversations, whether you're doing like some kind of thought transmission type beat, whether you're doing affirmation rampages, whether you're listening to subliminals, whether you're doing sleep tapes, all those things. Affirmations, whether you are doing sats, you are visualizing, whether you're meditating, whether you are scripting, it could be self-hypnosis. So whatever is helping you, whatever you're using as a tool. But the point of using any technique is to help you get into the state of having what you want. So in order to familiarize yourself with an experience that you've never had before, first you have that experience internally. You have it in imagination, you replay it mentally, and you start to saturate your mind with the experience. Depending on what it is you're manifesting, what your background is with manifestation, what your relationship is to the law and God and you, you're probably going to use them a little bit differently. In the beginning, it might be a thing where you just need to be diligent. You need to have some level of structure or discipline in order to stay on track, in order to not be wavering and going back and forth between this state and that state, old version and new version. Because if you continue to do that, of course, you're going to continue to get hot and cold results in your reality. Things just go a lot more smoothly when you are dominantly in the state that you want to be in. So basically, once you start being the person that you want to be, you will start seeing the results that align with that self-image. I speak very frequently about the fact that techniques are not a necessity. You are not required to do a technique, and just because a technique works for somebody else doesn't mean that it has to be the technique that you do. Just because a certain technique doesn't work for you doesn't mean it doesn't work for somebody else. And manifestation is subjective. Everybody is on their own individual journey. Everybody is going to have their own individual experience, and you are going to evolve in your journey with manifestation. And that's probably going to look a lot different from you as a beginner with conscious manifestation to you as the spiritually evolved version of yourself. When you do get to that place, when you're a little bit more familiar with the law, where you have experience, when you have successes to back up your reasoning for why you're allowed to have the things you want, and you've released a lot of that resistance, it will be a lot easier for you to do what I say to do all the time, which is make a decision. Make a decision to be the version of yourself that you want to be. Keep making that decision, keep returning to that decision no matter what. You have to be relentless about returning to your decision. Your decision becomes the only thing. All the other options are now invalid because you have chosen. That is your choice. The only thing that would deter you from continuing to make that choice, regardless of 3D evidence, would be if you were to settle. If you were to settle for that old version of yourself, the old version of reality, the old version of those circumstances, and you don't see yourself as the cause of all of that. You perceive that there is some power outside of you that is blocking you from having the things that you want, which is you believing in a false reality. So most of the time, I'm going to tell you, make a decision. You don't believe it, make the decision anyway. Just say, I know it. I know this to be true. I don't care. I don't even care if the old version of me is in my mind telling me that I'm full of shit. I'm still gonna make the decision, and I'm still gonna make the decision, and I'm gonna keep making the decision until it hardens into fact, until I see the evidence of what's happening internally in my external world. But it's not always that easy, is it? Can we be real? It's not always that easy. And like I said, over time, it gets easier and easier for more of your manifestations, more of your desires, and the things that you want to just be as simple as making a decision. You're more prone to just drop it when you trust yourself, when you trust the law, when you know that it is actually done, and there's really nothing that you have to do. So it's not the technique itself that is manifesting anything. Otherwise, there would just be a clear-cut formula. It would work the same for everybody, and everybody would just be getting what they want off rip. It is you. It's about who you are choosing to identify as. It's about your perspectives on how you see the world, your belief systems, your understanding of your power to choose. The true I am, that is you, that pure awareness of being all that is. When you know that that is you, when you know that that is the truth of you, it becomes a lot easier to decide. But until that is a solidified, just non-negotiable awareness, or if you've gotten to a state where you feel like you've been knocked out of that awareness, something has happened that has triggered you, there is some circumstance that seems bigger than you in some way, that seems different, that seems like it takes a little bit more work to wrap your mind around, allowing yourself to have this, giving yourself permission to have this desire, that's where the techniques are going to come in, okay? It is not wrong to use the technique. That's literally what they're here for. That's what everything that's here is here for. It's a tool for you to use if you choose it. If it does not feel as easy as just saying, okay, it is that way. I made the decision. Okay, I'm just gonna assume that it is. It's done. I'm gonna move on. If you're like, but it's not though, but this feels hard though, but I'm not seeing it and I'm noticing myself wavering, getting stuck in thought loops, having intrusive thoughts, battling with my thoughts, not feeling good about what's happening, not feeling good about my power, that is what you use techniques for, to get you back into that state of awareness of knowing that you are powerful, that you are the creator of your reality, that you are allowed to choose, and that you can have what you want. So that's one reason you'd use techniques, is because not everything is just like, oh, okay, for everybody. Like, it takes you having that level of rapport, you having that level of trust, that level of faith with yourself to just be able to stand firmly in that conviction. And by using techniques as the permission slip for you to allow what you want to manifest, you build that trust, and then it makes it easier for the next time and easier for the next time and easier for the next time, of course, depending on what your belief systems are about whatever the particular thing is you're manifesting. Also, techniques are for saturation. You do want to saturate yourself in your wish fulfilled. Now, saturation doesn't mean that you have to be constantly affirming. That doesn't mean if you miss a night of visualization that you're fucked. Your results are not going to come, or you're resetting your progress by not being so incessantly focused on doing whatever the technique is. I've said this before. Many people confuse saturating yourself with the wish fulfilled with suffocating yourself with the wish fulfilled. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that is and why that happens a little bit later. But you do want to saturate yourself with that mental image, because in order to have that new experience in the physical reality, you have to first have that experience internally, and it has to start to feel natural to you. You have to become familiar with it. So you go to prepare a place. You prepare the place mentally, you practice it, you rehearse it, you feel the feelings of it, you become aware of what it's like to be that version of you, because that version of you already exists. And all of the things that are entailed within that reality, that seems like a future reality, that seems like something that you are going to manifest or are working towards manifesting, already exists. So if you are to go into your mental closet, if you were to go within yourself and see that version of yourself, know that that is already a real reality. And the way to bring that 4D reality into the physical 3D manifested plane is to saturate yourself with it, to become so familiar with it that you embody it. And then that version of you is what allows it to materialize. It's what attracts it. Now, I don't like to use the word attract, because for some people that implies that you are taking something from outside of you and pulling it towards you. Remember that everything outside of you starts within you. There is nothing that is actually outside of you. You're meeting yourself at all times in your experience, because everyone and everything is you pushed out. So it's not that you're using a technique to create something outside of you and then attract it to you. You are using techniques to become aware. You need to become aware of that version of you that already exists, that version of reality that already exists. And once that is dominantly your awareness, you will be able to see it physically manifested. Make sense? Cool. So saturation leads to familiarization with that end, with your desire being fulfilled. So the techniques are the practice, they are the preparation, because you don't want to prematurely manifest yourself into a situation that you think you want, that you think you're prepared for, and get there and not be fully embodied as that version of yourself, not be fully identifying with that experience, and then cause yourself to self-sabotage or push the experience away from yourself because you were not actually internally ready for it. That's not something that is determined by anything outside of you. That is something that all happens within. So it's not a divine timing, like a when you're ready thing. Like when you're ready, or when this thing is ready for you, it'll happen. It's when you have properly prepared yourself, when you are wearing the correct mental outfit. Because to be real, sometimes people think they want things, and they think they want things instantly. And I am also guilty of this. You have such a burning desire for something and you want it to happen so bad that you're not realizing that that delay, that time that you take getting familiar with it, using your techniques, that buffer period is actually a grace period. It's not a waiting period, as if you just sit still long enough, it'll come when it's supposed to. No, it'll come when you are the correct version of yourself, when you have properly prepared yourself internally to have that external experience. So sometimes using a technique is the path of least resistance to get you there. So if you are still having an experience of resistance when you're thinking about your desire, if you're thinking about your desire and then you're automatically thinking about the opposite, you're automatically thinking how it's not possible, and what if this happens, and what about this circumstance, and how am I gonna do this because of that? If you're playing the what if game, if you're playing the stupid questions game, we already talked about that. If you haven't heard me talk about stupid questions, watch the last 2 videos. If you are doing that, you are still at a heightened level of resistance. That resistance is what keeps that reality from fully manifesting. Because once you make the decision, manifestation is instantaneous, right? It's already done in that moment, because everything is done at all moments. Creation is finished. So if you were to fully decide with the full conviction that it is yours now and fully claim it, then it would manifest very quickly. The reason that it does not, and the reason that you use techniques and things take time, is because of that resistance. And it's not a block, and it's not something to figure out. It's not to say like, what's wrong with me? What needs fixing? What do I need to change about myself? It's just that you are not the self who is compatible with that experience. You just haven't gotten there yet. The length of that journey, the length of the buffer period, is determined by you. Sometimes you can immediately shorten it by just making a decision and being so done with it that you refuse to go back to the old story. And sometimes the path of least resistance is for you to ease yourself into having that experience by doing the saturation, becoming familiar with it, realizing that it's safe to have this experience, that you deserve this experience, you are worthy of it, and that everything is available to you. You're capable of having what you want. And once you become familiar with it, it's not such an unknown. Even if you haven't had the physical experience, you don't know what it feels like tangibly necessarily, you do, because you've already had the experience internally. And what's happening in your 4D is just as much, if not more real than what's happening in the 3D. It's okay to enjoy using techniques. Techniques are also just for people who enjoy using techniques, just for the sake of experiencing, seeing what you can come up with, seeing what is actually available to you. Because sometimes it's not until you take that moment to pluck yourself out of what is known, what is familiar, what is habitual to you, and you allow yourself to expand your consciousness in that way and see the possibilities that actually exist, that you know what's actually available for you, and you can actually figure out what your true desires are. Because like I said before, sometimes you think you really, really want something, but maybe it's either that you're not fully ready for that experience for some reason, you've decided you're not, or there's actually some higher level of experience that is more aligned with you that would not enter your awareness had you not allowed that space and that time for yourself to go through those creative acts, to have your imaginal scenes, to play in your consciousness. So there's nothing wrong with techniques inherently. Again, they are a tool. They're a tool for you to use to help exercise the power of infinite intelligence. You use techniques to see what is available to you, and then you get to pick and choose. You can literally test out the possibilities, test out different realities in your imagination before they're fully manifested, and see where you are most aligned. Even if there's not something specific that you're looking to manifest, even just getting into an imaginal scene or having an inner conversation with yourself that is based around a certain feeling, like the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of love or excitement or joy, and allowing yourself to ponder on what possibilities come up with that feeling. What is actually available to me? What is actually my highest level of fulfillment that maybe I've not allowed myself to be previously open to? When you are in your conscious mind all day, when you are so focused on what is familiar to you, right? Because throughout your day, throughout your waking experience, 95% of what is actually going on is subconscious. Only 5% of what's happening in reality is by conscious choice. Most of the time you're going on subconscious programming, or you're playing out your life, you're having situations and scenarios that are based off of your identity, your core belief systems, your state, who you believe you are. So in order to allow yourself to see something outside of that, outside of something that is programmed, something that is habitual, something that is unaware, you have to get into that state of pure awareness and just allow yourself to play there. Allow yourself to experience just for the sake of experiencing. And that can just be fun. That can just be a fun time. So there are plenty of reasons why you would use techniques, and none of them are wrong and none of them are bad. Okay? Cool. Let's talk about why you may come to the conclusion that using a technique would imply that you are still lacking your desire. Like I said before, if you really think about it, the version of you already having what you want is not thinking about how to get what they want, right? That would be implying that you are lacking it, that you don't have it right now. And the point of techniques, the point of manifestation, is to get into the state where you do have it right now. So that's counterintuitive, that's counterproductive. So then the question is, okay, so should I just not use techniques? The answer is no, for the reasons previously stated. Sometimes you are still in that state. You are still in the old self, and you use techniques to lessen that resistance, to bring you closer and closer to that state of embodying your wish fulfilled, so that you realize that there actually is no lack. You realize that the possibilities actually are available to you. So all lack is feeling separation from your desire. It is thinking of your desire, but not from your desire. That is where you are not using techniques effectively. Now, thinking of your desire would imply that you are detached from it. You are still a separate identity from the identity that you want to be. You can only think of your desire from the state of not having it, which would imply the lack of it. So that would be you believing in that false reality, that you don't already have what you want, because if creation is finished, all that is already exists, and you are all that is, then that means you do actually already have what you want. But to feel like you have to use a technique, otherwise you're not going to get it, otherwise it's not available to you, otherwise you're not capable, you can't make it happen, it's not actually yours, would imply that you are still believing in that false reality of lack, where you are separate from your desires and everything outside of you, which is not true. You are not separate from anything you could see or experience ever in awareness. Okay, so thinking from it, from your desire, could be akin to like daydreaming about something that you have planned later on in your day. You know your plans are certain, maybe it's even something that you do on a regular recurring basis, and you are very familiar with it, you have a sure sense of what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, how it's gonna happen, and you're just thinking about it. You're just thinking about, okay, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do this, and it just is what it is. Like, this is just what's happening. This is just what's gonna happen. It's not that big of a deal, but you're just thinking about it. You're thinking about, oh, I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm gonna do this and that, and I'm so excited for it, and when I go there, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna talk to this person, I'm gonna get this thing, and then you just go on. Maybe you think about something else, maybe you go back to thinking about it. It is what it is, because at the end of the day, you already know that it's certain, and when that time comes, you are going to have that experience. You are going to fully live it out. That would be thinking from it. You don't feel separated from it, even if it's not currently happening right here in this moment. Really it is, because you are certain. You know it. You are familiar with it. You are embodied within it. There's no sense of needing to make something happen, because you already know that it is happening and you're just thinking about it. So that would be thinking from it. You are thinking from the state of already having your desire, already being the person you want to be, already seeing your fulfillment and knowing that it is truly yours. Otherwise, you are thinking of your desire from an outside state, which would mean that you are doing the two-man thing. You are doing the old man versus the new man thing, the serving two masters. So until you become dominantly embodied in the state that you want to be in, you are thinking of your desire. So in some cases, you need to think of your desire so much that you become so familiar with it, or you have such a longing to actually be there, to actually experience it now, that you start to have that experience internally. You start to live it out internally. And once you become familiar with it on the inside, you will start to then think from it. That's the goal. That's the only reason that using a technique would imply that you are lacking your desire, is if you are thinking about your desire as something that's outside of you and you're thinking of the technique as the thing that is going to make the desire happen, instead of knowing that you are the reason that your desires happen. You are the reason that everything happens, because there is no cause outside of you. So how can you use techniques effectively? You have to find what feels good. What feels good for you. Now that may change on a moment-to-moment basis. That may change depending on what the desire is, depending on the time of the day or the time of the month, okay? But whatever technique you're doing should feel tailor-made to you. It should have your imprint on it. It should be uniquely yours, even if you're doing a standard technique like affirming or visualization. But if you're taking somebody else's blueprint, somebody else's methodology for how they got what they wanted, and you think that because they were successful, I have to do it in exactly this way in order for me to be successful, you're missing the point of a technique. They are doing what suited them and got them in the correct state in order to allow that experience to happen. That technique was their permission slip for them. It may not click the same for you, especially if you are looking to somebody and thinking, oh, they use this specific affirmation, so this specific affirmation is what manifests. Again, that is you putting your power in the technique and not putting the power within yourself. It never matters actually specifically what's being said, what you are visualizing, if you are even using your technique to imply the specifics and detail of what it is you want. All that matters is that whatever the technique you are doing gets you into the feeling state of having it. And by feeling, I don't even necessarily mean emotionally, even though emotionally is great and I do encourage that. What I mean by feeling is the knowing, the conviction that it is done. Undeniable, this is mine, this is how it is, that's just it. If using somebody else's affirmation does not make you feel that way, if it does not empower you, if it doesn't feel natural to you, if it doesn't feel like it has your own personal touch, it's going to be a lot harder for you to connect with it. And it's going to be a lot harder for you to release that resistance, because again, it doesn't feel natural. And the whole point of the techniques is to make whatever the state is that you want to be in, whatever it is that you want to have, feel natural, so that you and that reality can match up and coexist together nicely and beautifully and fulfillingly. So don't try to replicate or recreate what somebody else has already done. Unless that for some reason is perfectly in alignment with you, in perfect resonance with you, and exactly how they did it is exactly what feels good for you, then by all means do it. But if it's not, and you feel like you're doing it as a means to an end, if it feels like I have to do this and not like I want to do this, or it feels good to do this, or it's actually causing some measurable change in your state of awareness, there's no point in doing it. The technique is moot. It's not being effective. It's not doing its job. The technique is only going to be effective if it hits home for you, if it resonates for you. So that means you need to be choosing your own affirmations. You need to be making it sound natural to you. You need to come up with your own scene or allow the scene to come to you. If somebody is telling you you have to do something a certain way, otherwise anything, I beg, please do not listen to that, because that person has ulterior motives. Be that what it may, you decide. You decide what's gonna work for you, and you decide that it's done. So don't force it, thinking that if you force yourself to do this long enough, you will get a certain result. Because maybe, but you're missing that fulfillment piece. You're missing the feeling of conviction, the feeling of it's done, the feeling of that satisfaction with it. Because if you're not feeling that in the process, once you manifest the thing, it's not going to have that feeling attached to it. You didn't get to the fulfillment piece. You got the tangible result of your desire, but the desire, the tangible desire, doesn't really mean anything if it does not satisfy you. If you didn't go about it in a satisfying way, if it doesn't actually bring you the results that you wanted, because you're not fulfilled. Because you got what you wanted, but it didn't produce the feeling state. This is the thing. A lot of people are using techniques in order to manifest something because they think whatever they're manifesting is going to make them feel a certain way. This is completely backwards. You don't manifest something because you think that thing is going to make you feel something. You feel a certain way in order to produce a certain result. You feel that way first, and whatever the result is a product of that feeling, of your internal state of being. If you are already being the version of yourself that feels fulfilled, no matter what you do or what you're experiencing or what the desire is or what you have, it is going to be fulfilling for you. It's going to feel good for you because you are already in that state. So everything that's external to you or seemingly external to you is going to match that state. It's going to be a mirror, the reflection of what's happening inside of you. So if you're going about things in a forceful way, if you're going about things under the premise of I have to, understand that one, whatever you manifest is most likely not going to be very satisfying. And two, you are building a precedent within yourself. You're building an expectation that in order to have the things you want, you have to do things you don't like to do. You have to force yourself through things. You have to be disciplined to an extent that it feels militant or it feels forceful or like you're using a lot of effort. And if you set that precedent for yourself and it's maybe a small or a medium-sized manifestation, what's going to happen when you want to manifest something that you've decided is big? The effort that you are going to have to put in goes up exponentially if you set up that pretense for yourself. So understand that you can choose that this is my technique. I'm doing it the way I want to do it because it feels good for me, and I'm choosing that it works, period, the end. If that person over there decides that it doesn't work for them like that, that is their choice, but this is my choice and my reality. This is my decision, and this is how it works for me, period, the end. On top of that, you have to know when to let go. Like Neville said, when you have reached the point where you feel like virtue has gone out of you, which means there's no longer any usefulness in the technique. Once you feel like you've gotten into that state where you're fully embodied, it's already done, you know that you have it, it can become a switching into, okay, if I still continue to do this, if I force myself to continue to do this, even though I feel like maybe it's time for me to stop, maybe I don't really need to affirm anymore, I don't need to affirm as much, maybe I can drop this scene and I can start thinking about something else. If you're still telling yourself, well, maybe I should continue to do it because if I don't continue to do it, it might not manifest, then you have not fully reached that state. As I was saying before, that's when you're going into still insisting that you must do this technique is implying that you're still lacking it. Because if you get to that state where you feel like, okay, I'm ready to let this go. I'm ready to just put it in the hands of infinite intelligence. I'm ready to let the orchestration just happen. I'm skipping down the bridge of incidents. I'm enjoying the scenery. I'm just living life. Everything's cool. If you're there and then you're taking pit stops to like check and make sure that like, okay, I'm still good, and not for any reason that's logical, like you're still wavering, you're still having a lot of doubt, you're still having excessive negative emotions, but you're just doing it because you feel like, oh, well, if I stop now, I'm gonna ruin my results. I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna lose my progress. At that point, you are starting to imply that the technique has more power than you do. So you need to know when to let go. You need to know when it's time to reach that Sabbath state. The state of knowing that it's done, knowing that there's nothing left for you to do. You've already done everything that is within your power to do, which is making the decision and standing firmly in it. From that point on, it's God's job, it's Source's job, it's the universe's job to bring it to you. And it's only your job to be in that receptive mode, to have your hands out, to be ready to receive. So if you're asking, when is it okay to let go? When can I drop the techniques? When should I stop? That shows you right there what state you're in. Because if you're in a state of doubting and questioning and wondering, that's not a state that the version of you already having it would be in. You wouldn't be asking those questions if you knew it was sure. If you were certain about it, if you had 100% knowing that it is the way that you said it is, that whatever you did worked, it's locked in, signed, sealed, and delivered, you would just know, okay, if I still want to think about it, if I want to think from it every now and then, if I just want to continue to enjoy my imaginal acts, then I totally can, but I don't have to because I already know it's done, like I did it. So when you are dominantly in that state, when you dominantly know yourself to be whatever it is that you say you are, when you're thinking correctly, when you're being correctly, when you are taking the action that you are inspired to, when you are actually in alignment, when you are not allowing any outside resistance or opposition to deter you from doing what you know is aligned with you, that's the moment where you could take or leave the technique. You can continue to think from it if it feels good, or you can move on to thinking about something else, knowing full well that your desire will meet you wherever you are because you are in the correct state to receive. So let's not demonize techniques. I myself even have been guilty of this in the past because sometimes you just can't conceptualize of why certain things work for certain people. But again, we're having our own individual unique experiences and we are allowed to evolve at our own paces. We are all allowed to like different things, enjoy different things, and get our fulfillment from different places. That's literally what we're here to do. And if you're in that state of questioning whether or not what you're doing is going to get you what you want, or whether it's implying that you don't have what you want, the main thing you need to know is that question right there tells you where you're at. Because when you just know, when you are just like, duh, it's so obvious to you. It's like, hello, do you even know who I am? Like, do you even know what's going on here? Do you know that I am that I am? You're just like, I could literally do whatever I want. Whatever you do, whatever you are inspired to do, whatever kind of actions that you take are going to lead to your fulfillment. You have no choice but to be on that trajectory to your end, to your desires. You have no choice but to keep walking along the bridge because that state is aligned with that reality. So no matter what you do, you're gonna end up where you want to be. So know that, and with that knowledge, do what feels good in the moment. If it stops feeling good, free yourself up, relieve yourself of the responsibility to continue doing something that's no longer working for you or no longer has any value to you. And even if it's just for that moment, let it go. Try something else, put your focus on something else. But if you're choosing to do that, take your focus away from it. Make sure that you are not then going back and entertaining the old story. That is what techniques are there for, to keep you on track. But once you know that you're on track, once you're like, okay, I'm good, I don't need training wheels anymore, I don't need the bumper rails anymore, I know I'm good, I know I got it, we're good. You genuinely are free to do whatever you want and decide the rules in your own reality. Decide what works for you, decide what's true for you, decide how it's gonna be. Because ultimately, whatever you choose is what it's gonna be. So, choose wisely. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for me today. I intend this message serves you well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. If you're interested in working with me or checking out any of my other platforms, all that information will be in the description box below. And other than that, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.